From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ayotunde Balogun.
Tonight, total electricity blackout looms in Kaduna State ahead of tomorrow's industrial action by the Nigeria Labour Congress over sack of civil servants. 3 policemen feared killed as hoodlums attack police station in Anyocha local government area of Delta State. President Muhammadu Buhari departs Nigeria for France to attend African Finance Summit on review of African economy in post-pandemic era. And more deaths in Gaza as Israeli onslaught against Palestinian militants enters 7th day. UN begin talks over crisis. Bearing last-minute changes, the Nigeria Labour Congress will, in a few hours from now, make real its threat to begin a 5-day warning strike in Kaduna State over the recent disengagement of civil servants by the Kaduna State government. The chairman of the Kaduna State chapter of the NLC will be accompanied by a peaceful protest tomorrow and will be led by the president of the union, Mr. Ayuba Waba, and other labor leaders across the country. According to the union, the strike will involve grounding of all socio-economic activities in both public and private sectors of the state.
The stage appears set for a showdown between the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Kaduna State government, as the state government insists that the plan to right-size its workforce is due to dwindling revenue generation and to preserve its ability to use its resources to serve the entire citizens of the state instead of a privileged few. The bone of contention is the sacking of over 7,000 workers at the local government areas and the universal basic education by the Kaduna State government, an action the NLC describes as anti-people.
On Monday, God willing, going to withdraw all our services, and both from private and public sector. All affiliates of Nigeria Labour Congress are going to withdraw their services in Kaduna State until our demands of rebutting or re-engaging those workers that were sacked is really achieved.
One of the effects of the dispute is the looming electricity blackout and scarcity of fuel, as members of the National Union of Electricity Employees and their counterparts from the Nigeria Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers declare their readiness to down tools also. In a show of solidarity, the electricity workers on Sunday shut down operations, resulting in total blackout in the state.
Everybody in the state, all workers, market women, civil society organizations, the student associations, they are all involved in this struggle. And by Monday, there's going to be a total shutdown. Total shutdown. The banks are not going to operate. The filling stations are not going to work. Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers, the railway, as from midnight of today, all these services are going to be withdrawn.
For the Kaduna State government, not even the threat of industrial action by the union will make it reverse its decision, which it insists is for the interest of over 10 million citizens of the state. At a news conference, the State Commissioner for Local Government debunks the claim of the Labour Union that the government plans to disengage over 11,000 workers. He explains that the government's decision to lay off some workers and political appointees is necessary to enable it cope with fiscal challenges and preserve its ability to use its resources for the entire state.
It is not sustainable to persist in spending 84% to 96% of its FAC receipts on salaries and personnel costs, as has been the experience of the state since October 2020. The necessary verification of credentials for full implementation of this painful but necessary decision is still being done. It has not determined the total numbers of officers that might be affected by the decision. Neither has it stopped paying the minimum wage
Although the Kaduna State government has advised civil servants to report to their duty post on Monday, May the 17th, with a warning to the NLC not to disrupt public peace or invade its offices in the name of protest, the labor union, on the other hand, is insisting that no threat by the government will stop them from embarking on the 5-day warning strike.
Meanwhile, long queues are back on the streets of Kaduna Metropolis as petrol stations shut down in solidarity with the NLC strike. Already, many petrol stations did not open for business today, while the few ones that opened operated only 1 or 2 pumps, a situation that sent the residents into panic mode. Our correspondent, who visited some of the filling stations, reports that some motorists found it difficult to obtain the product, while many spent over 4 hours at petrol stations without getting fuel. Some petrol stations and black marketers have cashed in on the development to rip motorists as some of them have increased their petrol pump price from 162 to 172 naira per litre. Meanwhile, the Kaduna workers' strike is already gaining support from other groups. The Alliance on Surviving COVID-19 and Beyond ASCAP has asked its affiliates and supporters to rally around the Nigeria Labour Congress in what it describes as an essential strike. The group bemoans the rate of retrenchment in Kaduna State, putting the figure of sacked workers under the administration of Governor Nasir El-Rufai at 60,000. According to the group, the state government dismissed 13,000 workers in 2016 and then 40,000 in 2017. It alleges that as many as 17,000 workers have been laid off between April and May of this year. A statement by ASCAP leader and senior advocate of Nigeria, Femi Falana, also accuses the Kaduna State government of stopping the allowances of pensioners who, according to him, have earned the pay for between 5 and 10 years. It counters the claim of the government that the retrenchment is due to paucity of funds, insisting that the resources of the state had increased in recent times, pointing the state's internally generated revenue and the monthly FAC allocations due to recovery in crude oil prices. The statement reads in part, Governor El-Rufai seems to have fully accepted the ethos of neoliberalism. Now, the state government believes the rich and business people have to be handsomely rewarded and incentivized to invest in the state. In contrast, the workers have to be paid the lowest possible salaries, beaten into submission and periodically terrorized by mass sackings. The group draws a connect between poor workers' welfare and the spate of insecurity in the state, calling for action to reverse the massive attacks on jobs and poverty-induced insecurity in Kaduna State. To security matters, no fewer than 10 persons have been confirmed killed by persons suspected to be killer herders in Burnham Kurkur community of Bali local government area of Taraba State. The assailants reportedly invaded the community in the early hours of today. According to the police, the situation has been brought under control. In a related development, 6 people have been found dead between Jatao, Kungana and Gazabo communities of Bali local government area of the state. The chairman of the local government area, Mahmoud Musa, blames it on an attack at a border community with Benue State. He adds that calm has been restored and security agencies are manning the area to prevent a recurrence. From the northern state of Taraba to Anambra State in the southeast, where some residents of Anaku community in Ayemilum local government area are fleeing their community following an alleged attack by their neighbors from Omo. According to the President General of Anaku community, Mr. Paul Muba, the cause of the attack is still sketchy, but may not be unrelated to land tussle. Several people are feared to have been killed in the Sunday morning attack, while the former chief judge of the state is reported to have been caught in the crossfire with machete cuts. Several buildings and vehicles have been burnt down, and residents with their belongings are fleeing the community for fear of further attacks. Now, the police spokesperson says a combined team of security operatives have been mobilized to the area for an on-the-spot assessment of the situation. The police hereby appeals for calm and seeks cooperation of locals to bring the perpetrators to justice.
Some kindred, not even the whole community, is having issue with some kindred in that Omo about the boundary of land. So I don't know if the issue is the problem. I don't know. So now when they come, they will tell us the problem, because I don't really know what the cause of all this nonsense. I don't really know. Because I'm supposed to know as a community leader if there is anything, any problem in this community. I'm supposed to know, but now I don't know anything. Everybody in the community has run away because of the sudden attack. Yes, we have casualty. I'm not sure the really number, but we have up to 15 casualty now.
From Anambra, we head down to Delta State, where gunmen have attacked the Nsukka Divisional Police Station in Anyocha South local government area. The attackers were said to have invaded the police station, burning vehicles and destroying property. The Assistant Inspector General of Police, Zone 5, and the State Commissioner of Police, accompanied by other senior police officers, have visited the scene of the attack to ascertain the level of destruction. Now, journalists were barred from entering the premises, and the police authorities also refused to speak with us. Although the actual number of casualties is yet to be ascertained, reports have it that 3 police officers may have been killed in the attack. The assailants also burned down vehicles in the premises. In the meantime, the former Imo State Governor and Senator representing Imo West, Rochas Okorocha, has been given his views on how to resolve some of the challenges confronting the country. The lawmaker says the problem is largely due to the inability to communicate properly, especially between the government and the people. Senator Okorocha says the issues of injustice, poverty, and unemployment need to be urgently tackled to avert future danger. He was a guest earlier this evening on our political program, Sunday Politics.
You either have dialogue or you have war, or you have disagreement. If it's national dialogue, of course, national dialogue can take around the table and call the leaders, the various regional groups, the various traditional rulers and clergies, and those who often criticize government from outside, come around the table. And it takes nothing for Mr. President to address them and say, look, this is challenges we have, this is what is the problem, what's your contribution? Instead of staying out there to criticize, now you are here before me, tell me what I think I'm doing wrong and what I should have done better than what I'm doing. I think if President Buhari throws this back to the public, he'll be shocked at the progress we're going to make as a nation. Sometimes the presidency see it as if it's an attempt to pull them down. Then the people see it as if it's a marginalization because there's no communication. The government of the day is not communicating enough to the people. The people are misunderstanding government and putting their own judgment. And so there's whole complications here and there, and it shouldn't be. To whether you call national dialogue, national conference, for as long as you don't address the issue of injustice and hunger in this country, you have not started. Believe me, you'll go back to square one. You'll be just being another battle of failure. So these are the major issues. And more of these problems are coming again. We have right now in the north, we have in Nigeria 14.3 million out-of-school children. 70% of them are from the north. And these children are not going to school. And we are talking about education injustice going on right now. Children are not going to school. These children will grow up again to become a problem to the society. And not going to be a problem in the north, they'll be a problem to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We must understand this. That the Boko Haram we suffer today was the ignorance was betrayed many years ago, not during the APC administration, 30 years ago, when children were not going to school, and we say it doesn't matter. All right. We are comfortable for as long as our children are abroad and the children are not going to school. Nigerians are, of course, leaders are comfortable. But look at the consequences now. Our children can no longer stay at home comfortably. Our children are being kidnapped.
In part 2, after the break, we have more on security, and elder statesman Edwin Clark asked President Muhammadu Buhari to hold roundtable discussions to address security or to address the country's challenges. Plus, we'll also beam a searchlight on the call for the restructuring of the country's federal system. Our data analyst Babajide Ogusawo will be our guide. Join us again. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television. A reminder of our top stories. Total electricity blackout looms in Kaduna State ahead of tomorrow's industrial action by the Nigerian Labour Congress over sack of civil servants. 3 policemen feared killed as hoodlums attack police station in Onyocha local government area of Delta State. President Buhari departs Nigeria for France to attend African Finance Summit on review of African economy in post-pandemic era. And more deaths in Gaza as Israeli onslaught against Palestinian militants enters 7th day. UN begin talks over crisis. We're staying in Imo State, where there has been several attacks on police facilities in recent times. The State Police Commissioner is asking police officers and men of the command to put in their best and show more commitment in restoring peace and security in the state. The Commissioner, Mr. Abutu Yaro, gave this charge during the deployment of the Operation Search and Flush team to different areas of the state to help combat crime and check criminal activities. He advised them to avoid the indiscriminate use of firearms and hostility to members of the public.
It's been a week since some hoodlums were killed by a group of joint security operatives in Olu local government area of Imo State. Since then, there seems to be a breath of fresh air as the fear that envelopes residents is gradually dying down. Security operatives in the state are not leaving any stone unturned, especially personnel of the rejigged Operation Search and Flush. According to the Imo State Commissioner of Police, Abutu Yaro, any act of cowardice would not be tolerated.
Our primary purpose of being here is to work, nothing more, work and protect the people. This mandate is sacred, this mandate is sacrosanct. Therefore, you must go to the field, go to the roads, go to the community, and show exemplary commitment. We want peace and security to be restored to Imo State. If I receive any iota of complaint with respect to negative conduct of you, either as an individual or as a group, I will not hesitate to enforce the necessary disciplinary code.
The police are not alone. Officers and men of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, are also equipped to support in fighting crime to a standstill in the state, according to the state commandant Michael Oga. The command recently intercepted a truck conveying adulterated petroleum products with 4 suspects arrested.
We arrested one truck here in Imo State with adulterated products. So I've mobilized more men for intelligence and also collaborating with other agencies. And security is not only for security men, it's everybody's business, including you. So we need more information from you and the public in order to get to the root cause. What is going on is not unsurmountable. This is something we can handle. And I'm very sure we're going to succeed.
Hopefully, the charge given by the hierarchy of these security agencies to their officers and men will continue to yield more results, so Imo will once again enjoy the peace and stability she has always been known for. Ejito Kokute, Channels Television News.
The president has departed the nation's capital, Abuja, to attend a 4-day African Finance Summit in Paris. The meeting is expected to focus on reviewing the African economy in the wake of the shocks from the coronavirus pandemic and possible relief measures, especially from increased debt burden on countries. The president's media aide, Garba Shehu, in a statement explained that the summit, to be hosted by President Emmanuel Macron, will attract major stakeholders in the global finance institutions and some heads of government. President Muhammadu Buhari is also expected to meet with the French president to discuss growing security threats in the Sahel and Lake Chad region and boosting the health sector. He will also hold talks with some key players in the oil and gas sector, engineering and telecommunications, the European Council and European Union, as well as members of the Nigerian community in France. In the meantime, the main opposition, the People's Democratic Party, is asking President Muhammadu Buhari and the All Progressives Congress to end what the party describes as their insensitivity to food insecurity, the attendant hunger and starvation in the country. The party said in a statement that under the current government, over 82.9 million Nigerians can no longer afford their daily meals due to the failure of government to take practical steps to grow and protect the food sector. The party says Nigeria now ranks as 98 out of 107 in Global Hunger Index, with an agonizing food shortage, collapsed purchasing power, alarming 33.3% unemployment, and 22.95 food inflation rates, as well as increased morbidity and mortality rates. The PDP wants President Buhari to take urgent steps to address this issue by opening the country's silos to cushion the situation and push down prices. It also wants the federal government to realign the agricultural sector by beefing up security in food production areas so that farmers can return to their farmlands. Apart from the PDP, elder statesman Chief Edwin Clark is also asking President Muhammadu Buhari to call leaders of political, economic, social, religious groups, amongst others, to a roundtable discussion which is designed to tackle the country's security challenges. Chief Clark told Channels Television's Ladi Akeredulale on our current affairs program Newsnight that all hands need to be on deck regardless of backgrounds in order to address the various issues brought to the fore by the current situation.
The time has come for him to call every Nigerian leader together. Let us all come together. The country belongs to us. If there is trouble today, we have no place to run to. And if we are not solving problems like Boko Haram and these bandits and so on, we will soon fight ourselves. And when it happens, we'll have no other country. Let the President call all of us. His opponents, everybody. APC cannot do it alone. PDP will not either. Call the leaders. They are all generals in this place. Like General Gawan, General Babangida, and all of them. Absalom is there talking every time. Nigeria does not lack people. Let the president come out to see his people. Let me invite the people and discuss with them. What do we do with our country? We are talking about restructuring. Talking about state police, which could be done very easily. I know that there's no money for the state to pay. But the main fact that they said state now have police, they will always find some money.
For the full interview with Chief Edwin Clark, please watch Newsnight tomorrow, Monday, May the 17th at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. Restructuring means different things to different people at different times. Beyond being a word, how can restructuring be measured, calculated, or even determined? Babajide Gusawo, data scientist and information consultant, is here to share insights on the substance of restructuring. Great to have you on the News at 10, Babajide.
Good evening, Ayatunde.
All right, so we're talking restructuring. For you, what is restructuring all about? And is it only the poor that leads to, or is it only the door that leads to improved security and, welfare, as it were?
That's like three questions in one.
Yeah, three questions in one. But let's talk about restructuring, because it's a terminology that keeps coming up. So what is it all about?
I've thought about it. I've listened to a lot of arguments about restructuring. But for me, restructuring means three things. The first is restructuring is all about doing things right and doing the right things. That's the first. The second is there's no such thing as a restructured Nigeria. In other words, restructuring is not a bus stop. It's a journey. It is a continuous and perpetual journey. So you will never, from my own perspective, there's no such thing as a restructured Nigeria, because restructuring is continuous and perpetual, not a bus stop. That is the second thing. Now to the third and final, which is you can't and you cannot have restructuring without looking at the Constitution. So tonight I'd like us to start from looking at the history of the Constitution, because next year Nigeria will be celebrating 100 years of being a country with constitutions. And if we...
Going back to 1963
Going back
Republican
to the
Constitution.
1922.
Oh, okay, good. 1922.
1922 Clifford's Constitution. And if we take a look at our history of constitutions, it allows us to understand the problem better. Because right from 1922, when we had the first Clifford Constitution, the evidence shows and reveals that the country wasn't built on ideologies or principles. It was built on resources, allocation, money. And so in 1922, you needed to have £100 to vote or to be voted for. And that continued even in 1946. You needed to have £50 to vote or to be voted for. So the basis of Nigeria's development really wasn't based on ideology or principles or policies. It was really, the focus was on money and resources. And that continued even up to 1954, and then we saw a lot of crisis and a lot of discussions on secession. And then came in the 1960 Constitution, and even though the Queen of England was still the commander-in-chief of the country in 1960, we saw some progress in 1960. 1960 was when we had those exclusive lists, the concurrent list, but that wasn't insufficient. In 1963, we needed another
constitution.
And in 1979, Nigerians then had the choice to vote for a president, and then our last constitution as amended, 1999.
And we're still talking about amending the 1999 constitution even.
Next year,
there are calls for that.
Next year will be 100 years of us having constitutions, and yet we still are talking about restructuring. And that's why I say that restructuring is not a bus stop. It's a continuous and perpetual discussion that we would have. So we'll never get to a point where we'll celebrate that Nigeria is restructured, because Nigeria will always be restructuring.
Now, let's look at the issue of money sharing. I mean, how monies should be shared. Isn't this the bone of contention, really, from those calling for restructuring?
You're right. It might not be the bone, but the evidence shows that it's the major bone. And there are three reasons why it's the major bone. The first is 34 out of Nigeria's 36 states get more money from the Federation account, Abuja, than they do from their states. Keep that in mind. 34 out of 36 states get more money going to Abuja than they generate from their states. The second question will then be, if they go to Abuja to collect money from the Federation account, how is the Federation account funded? And the central bank provides us that answer. They say more than half of the money in the Federation account comes from oil. Then the third question is, how sustainable or how important is oil still in Nigeria's economy? The National Bureau of Statistics has the answer. They say last year, 75% of all we exported from this land was still oil. And so if we look at even the history of oil sharing to understand today's problem, in 1960, this is how money was shared. 50% of what you earn from oil from your region, 50% you will keep. You will then put 30% into a pool that will be shared among other regions, and the federal government in 1960 will collect only 20% of your oil money. Again, in 1960, you keep 50% of your oil proceeds in the region, you put 30% in a pool that will be shared across all regions, and then 30% goes to the federal government. Today, what do we have? You only keep 13%. Compare that to 50% in 1960. And the remaining 87% goes into a pool that now is shared among the federal government, the states, and the local government. And that is the bone of contention. It is really all about, though that is the major bone, it is about we need to keep our money. But why are these discussions coming in now, Ayotunde? And it's because these discussions have always been there from what we've shown from history. But why it is more intense now is that in 1960, Nigeria had a population that was significantly below what it is today. Nigeria's population in 1960 was less than 60 million. Today, we have over 200 million people. The size of the land is still the same.
Still the same.
But the demands from the citizens for improved security and welfare is rising. That is the challenge we face.
Big challenge. So then how can equity or equality be measured? Is not just current system of public administration. Is it really, can we get anywhere with this?
So I like the way you started. We've looked at the history. We've then continued by looking at what is the challenge, which is oil revenue. But we have calls and people are concerned that they are being treated fairly. So let's look at the facts about representation, because that allows us to really address the solutions regarding this discussion of restructuring. And if we look at the facts, starting from where are the representatives of the people, the National Assembly? So it is correct to start from the principle of looking at how representatives are distributed in Nigeria. So we have 469 representatives in the National Assembly. But here are the facts, Ayotunde. Most of Nigeria's representatives come from the northwestern region. 113 representatives come from the northwest. The least represented region is the southeast. The southeast has only 58 representatives. But let's be clear. The next question we should ask is, why is the southeast the least represented in the National Assembly? And if we take a look at the fact, it allows us to understand that this perhaps was not done maliciously. It was based on population distribution and the census. And so if we take a look at the population distribution based on what the National Population Commission counted, they say that the Northwest, yes, has 24% of the representatives in the National Assembly, but they claim that the Northwest has, or their evidence shows that the Northwest has a population of 26%. The evidence from our population census, if accurate, shows that the Southeast only has a population of 12%, and so they have only 12% representation in the National Assembly. But here's the challenge, Ayotunde. What are the implications of the low representation of the Southeast? The implication is that if you look at the top 10 states that have the most representatives at the National Assembly, all zones are present, excluding and except the Southeast. So in front of you are the top 10 states in Nigeria that have the most number of representatives at the National Assembly. Kano, 27 representatives at the National Assembly. Lagos, 27. Sokoto, 14. But among these top 10, you see states across the Northwest, the North Central, the Northeast, the Southwest, the South-South, but there is no state in the Southeastern region. And that is the challenge, one of the major challenges that those that are calling that are screaming out
for restructuring
in the Southeast are looking at. So in the final analysis, I'll tell you this. Let us never fear to negotiate, but let us never negotiate out of fear. John F. Kennedy.
Babajide Oguso, data scientist and information consultant, thank you so much for your thoughts right there.
The pleasure is all mine here today.
Still ahead on the news at 10, Elijah community in Ondo State cry out for help over sea incursion, which has swept half of their community. Join us again. Welcome back. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has been reacting to some of the issues discussed by governors of the southern states, particularly on restructuring and the state of security in the country. In a series of social media tweets titled, "Nigeria is drifting. We must stop waiting for God," the former Vice President says the major challenge facing Nigeria today is that we are drifting. We are not just drifting politically and economically, we are also drifting apart from each other. He says it is un-Nigerian to terrorize fellow citizens. Up until about a decade ago, we did not have this. It is un-Nigerian to abduct people, and this is undoubtedly a new menace that has low historical precedence in Nigeria. Alhaji Abubakar is therefore asking Nigerian governors to stop waiting on Abuja to make changes and instead convene a national unity summit of all Nigerian governors to iron out the thorny issues affecting the destiny of the country until they figure out a way to resolve them. He says, forget about your party, forget about your tribe, respect your religion, and allow it to bring out the better part of you. Meet together, talk together, come up with the solutions to all our collective challenges. The former Vice President adds that the truth is that if at a national level we address these un-Nigerian tendencies immediately and dispassionately, we will not have Nigerians congregating at a regional or sub-regional level to address these issues. The Archbishop of the Catholic Diocese of Abuja, Bishop Ignatius Kaigama, is accusing the nation's political leadership of creating the vacuum religious leaders are trying to fill, noting that if politicians play their part, religious leaders will steer clear of the political scene. He was speaking during the celebration of the World Communication Day, a yearly celebration established by Pope Paul VI in 1967 which is aimed at examining the challenges and opportunities the media can avail the church as it spreads the gospel of Jesus Christ. Archbishop Kaigama used the opportunity to urge journalists to be wary of so-called security experts who could use the media to spread false narratives.
We pray that God will help our elected and public officials to be more patriotic and to be more efficient in carrying out their political duties. If they are doing so very well, there will be no need for religious leaders to dabble into politics. If our senators, our representatives, our elected members are doing their work very well, including the judiciary, if they are doing their work very well, there will be no need for religious leaders to become politicians overnight. They will only be concerned with praying for the nation. They will only be concerned with explaining the word of God to the people gathered to listen to them, and they will not be focusing on divisive, prophetic, political prognosis. You know, every religious leader of note will want to dabble into politics because there is a deficiency there, because something is wrong. And therefore, they have to fill the gaps. And that's why you find religious leaders jumping into politics and making pronouncements and all the statements that sometimes are not very helpful at all.
The Nigerian community in Johannesburg has held an interfaith prayer session for Nigeria as the nation grapples with its challenges. Nigeria's Consul General to South Africa, who was also at the session, appealed to citizens to do their best at all times to support efforts to make Nigeria better.
Mama Africa, Zumigina Africa, Mama Africa.
The colorful gathering was to celebrate the end of Ramadan, but all present, Christians and Muslims alike, had more to ask of God and their fellow countrymen and women on behalf of Nigeria.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir-Rahim. Malik Yawmiddin. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. We command Almighty Allah to be a peace in our life, in our country, in our continent, in the all over the world. All this coronavirus, Almighty Allah, take it away from us.
When we are fasting, we are killing the flesh to encourage the spirit. So what it means is that all the fasting that our Muslim brothers and sisters have done, one of the key things is to say, let the supernatural intervene in the natural. So we're going to tell the Lord, thank you, we thank you over our land, because it is well with Nigeria.
The host, Nigeria's Consul General in Johannesburg, Mr. Malik Abdul, also appealed to Nigerians everywhere in the world to renew their loyalty to the nation as it tackles its current challenges.
I want to take this opportunity to wish us all good health, peace, prosperity in our homes, and above all, God's guidance and protection. Once again, Eid Mubarak to all of you.
The Consul General, who was recently in Cape Town to meet with the Nigerian community, as well as the Premier of the Western Cape Province, Mr. Alan Winde, told us the outcome of the meetings.
We discussed a whole lot of issues on how to boost cooperation between our two countries. It was quite exciting meeting him, and as we speak, we are already planning a delegation, an economic delegation to explore ways of further interaction and investment between Nigerian businessmen and their South African counterparts.
From Nigeria?
From here, from South Africa. So that's a very important outcome of the meeting with the Premier.
As for an update on the Nigerian passport booklet shortage we had reported about earlier, The Consul General says he believes that the backlog will be cleared by the end of the month, as promised by the relevant authorities. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Betty Dibia, Channels Television News.
The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project, SERAP, has asked the Senate President and the Speaker of the House of Representatives to investigate allegations that 4.1 billion public funds budgeted for the National Assembly is missing. The organization is asking the legislative leaders to identify the lawmakers and staff members involved in these allegations and hand them over to appropriate anti-corruption agencies and ensure full recovery of any missing public funds. SERAP says the National Assembly has a role to play in fighting corruption in the country, insisting that little can be achieved by the legislative body in the anti-corruption fight if the leadership and members do not first confront the specter of alleged corruption and mismanagement within their ranks. Residents of Ayetoro, a coastal town in Elijah local government area of Ondo State, are currently battling the effects of sea incursion, which has started destroying property in the area. Residents, in a bid to draw government attention, have staged a peaceful march over their plight.
Sights and sounds of Ayetoro, a coastal community in Elijah local government area of Ondo State. Head to head, houses are overlooking the Atlantic in such proximity that appears worrisome, and this has been occasioned by the continuous pounding of sea waves directly on the houses and inhabitants. The result is clear and evident. Houses stripped to bare bones, electricity pole standing in isolation, and in response, emergency sandbags are being piled and deployed. But there's how much that can help to push back the rampaging sea encroachment. It's a decade-long torment which has progressed to a devastating proportion, leading to the loss of homes and property.
It dey affect us well. As I dey here, so not be my house. It does scatter my house. It's my friend now help me. Can't stay here. Say me can stay here. Me a manager. As I dey here, so I not see anything. When I feel say this one na my property, see don't carry everything go. So me I beg government, me they help us. Can't do the embankment. Any help where government feel help for us to do for us, me they can't do.
Danger appear lurking around the coast, and members of this community, the young and the old, are not taking it with a wave off, as demonstrated here. It's also interesting to note that Elijah local government area is an oil-bearing community and therefore a revenue-contributing area to the federal coffers, which suggests the call on one of the placards for NDDC's intervention, among other appeals.
Our properties are being destroyed, lives are threatened on a daily basis. Here and now we keep crying onto the government to come to our rescue and our aid. Up to today, we have not seen a concrete or reasonable move to show that they are ready to salvage this land.
The residents tell us more as regards promises made in the past by government, but not kept.
Alerted the state government and other bodies, NDDC, Usupadek and the other bodies. They came, they saw the encroachment. They made promises and contracts were awarded over 10 years ago. Up till now, nothing has been done.
A shoreline protection is clearly needed as both the traditional ruler of Ayetoro wants government to either construct an embankment or embark on a land reclamation to address the sea incursion.
We use this medium to make passionate and desperate appeal to the state government, to the federal and even international community. Embankment can stop the sea, reclamation can stop the sea. Any of this will save this land.
Ayetoro is in focus for what may be the impact of changing climate. How authorities therefore will react to this and the urgency applied would no doubt be soothing to already tensed nerves of these people.
The Yobe State government has identified indiscriminate felling of trees in the state as a major threat to environmental deforestation and increased desert encroachment that affects the nation's ecosystem. The state government revealed it raised 5 million seedlings through the competition in nurturing of trees across the 14 emirate councils in 2020 alone, but the needed impetus for land restoration is still static.
According to statistics on conservative service soil, 75 billion tons of fertile soil are globally lost to land degradation, with hundreds of hectares of land lost every year to desertification and drought. Although the United Nations declared 2010 to 2020 as a nation's decade for fight against desertification, felling of trees remains a major factor responsible for deforestation.
If these things are not addressed over the years or in the near future, I believe that most of the environmental disasters we see here will more than double. Because according to scientists, in the next 30 years, the weather-related disasters like flood, hurricane, tornadoes will double in terms of event compared to the 1970s record.
In Yobe, a state which is economically affected by encroachment of desertification, another disastrous factor which is having adverse effect on its environment is the felling of trees to earn a living, in addition to the use of such trees as a source of energy.
Even if you are going to cultivate a land, there have specific trees that you will be given, permission to fell them. But this is what you have seen now. What people have been doing, have been practicing for long. Some years back, if you come here, you can't even stay here alone because of the thickness of the forest.
Firewood sellers admitted that some of their members cut down trees to make charcoal and firewood.
Duk mutumin da kaga ya rungumi wannan sana'ar ba don wani abu don da ya samu rufin asiri na gidansa ne dai bin abu yi ne yake kawo harkan saran itace akai irin wannan abun da ake.
To safeguard the environment, the government is not taking it lightly as it outlines measures to punish all perpetrators.
However, the government is not impressed with the level of compliance with the law on environmentally detrimental activities of some people on the excuse of earning a living. Obviously, we cannot put the future of our people in jeopardy by allowing the trend to continue unabated.
Although government has unveiled plans to reward every individual who nurtures a tree up to 1 year, it needs to work towards providing sustainable means of livelihood for residents, including the provision of alternative sources of energy, especially in homes, so as to minimize the effects of desert encroachment.
We're in the 7th day of airstrikes between Israel and Gaza, and at least 42 people have already died today. Health officials there in Gaza say 16 women and 10 children are among the dead. While the Israeli military claims it has been targeting leaders and infrastructure linked to Hamas, the militant group that runs Gaza. A UN Security Council meeting has begun with international mediators hoping to broker a ceasefire. Secretary General Antonio Guterres said at the start of the meeting that the violence between the two was utterly appalling and wants the fighting to stop immediately. At least 188 people have been killed in Gaza since the violence began on Monday, including 55 children and 33 women, with 1,230 people injured.
Heartbreaking stories are emerging from the fighting going on between Israeli forces and Palestinian militant group Hamas. Ones like these, 6-year-old Susie Eshkutana and her father Riyad Eshkutana, the only two who survived the Israeli airstrike that hit their home in Gaza. And like 5-month-old Omar, the lone survivor from an Israeli airstrike early Saturday that killed his mother and 4 of his siblings. They were all visiting relatives when the house was struck. Rescuers were able to recover the infant who was thrown out of the house. The family had received no prior warning before the house was hit. More than 50 children have been killed in the Gaza Strip since airstrikes began on Monday, and those show no signs of abating. Death toll from the attacks is inching near 200 in Gaza, while in Israel, 10 people, including 2 children, have been killed in rocket attacks by Hamas and other militant groups.
We meet today amid the most serious escalation in Gaza and Israel in years.
By Sunday afternoon, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres had called a Security Council meeting with representatives of the Israeli and Palestinian governments present. He said the United Nations was actively engaging all sides towards an immediate ceasefire.
Fighting must stop. It must stop immediately. I appeal to all parties to heed this call. The United Nations is actively engaging all sides towards an immediate ceasefire. The hostilities have already caused unconscionable death, immense suffering, and damage to vital infrastructure. I'm appalled by the increasingly large number of Palestinian civilian casualties, including many women and children, from Israeli strikes in Gaza. And I also deplore Israeli fatalities from rockets launched from Gaza.
The Israeli and Palestinian representatives traded blame on the conflict.
Israel keeps telling you, put yourself in our shoes. This is what they say all the time. Put yourself in our shoes. But Israel is not wearing shoes. It is wearing military boots.
Hamas targets civilians. Israel targets terrorists. Israel makes every effort to avoid civilian casualties. Hamas makes every effort to increase civilian casualties.
And while leaders talk, the violence continues. This evening, Israeli police said it received a report on ramming attack in Sheikh Jarrah, where a vehicle approached a police roadblock at speed and struck and wounded several border policemen. 6 police officers were injured in the incident, 4 with moderate injuries and 2 with minor injuries. Meanwhile, Israeli forces used drones to drop tear gas on Palestinian demonstrators near the Beit El settlement. The specific type of drone was first used by Israeli police at the Gaza border during protests in 2018. Their use on a wider scale was approved by the police in late April.
Medical experts have advised that symptoms of mental issues like depression, stress, anxiety, and many others can be handled by actively partaking in physical activity through health-oriented recreational sports and exercises. This report takes a look at the importance of physical fitness.
Taking part in physical activities on a regular basis is essential for preventing a range of diseases and other health issues. These activities are important to our fitness, preserving our physical and mental health.
Last one, hey, yo, when you exercise yourself daily, once in a week or twice a week, it makes you look younger. It builds your immune system. It makes you look flexible.
As a human, you are meant to exercise to keep sure that you keep fit and to make sure that your health is stable for everyday activity.
You need at least an hour of exercising to help you be healthy in life.
According to medical experts, regular exercise and health-oriented recreational sports provides a huge range of benefits as they warn against the dangers of sedentary lifestyle.
There have been several studies, that have proven that sports, exercise and sports specifically, has huge benefits on mental well-being. Not just the overall mental well-being, but over conditions such as depression and even substance abuse and other forms of mental health conditions like anxiety.
If you are sedentary, you are not moving around so much, the blood flow will slow down. So in some people, there will be clogging of the blood vessels. So for us to be mentally fit, physically fit, to be able to achieve our goals in life, we need to keep moving.
It is then safe to conclude that physical fitness derived from exercise and sports in general is the pathway to maintaining a healthy life.
Rafa Nadal has warmed up for the French Open with a battling 7-5, 1-6, 6-3 win over world number 1 Novak Djokovic, as the Spaniard claimed a record-extending 10th World Masters title in the latest chapter of their rivalry. Nadal will now target a 14th French Open crown when the clay court Grand Slam begins on May the 30th.
Rafael Nadal.
And the main news again. Residents of Kaduna today lamented over total electricity blackout in the state ahead of tomorrow's industrial action by the Nigeria Labour Congress over sack of civil servants in the state. There's also been panic buying at petrol and gas stations in Kaduna State. And that's the news at 10. Many thanks for watching. I'm Ayo Tunde Balogun. From all of us here, it's good night. Stay safe.